Firstly, as a man, it is your duty, Islamically, to provide for the woman as an amana. You have taken her as a wife, so it is your responsibility, regardless of whether she works or not, to take care of her.
Let's do this. Okay, first of all, this is a Muslim panel. At least you will notice it from the thumbnail. So do not get offended by the difference in beliefs. I'm not here to talk about Islam. I'm here to talk about the idea of fairness. And in their tradition, there are certain things that are considered fair. And to be honest, it is fair, right? So don't get offended by what their ideology is. Just look at the common picture, because it resonates across different religions and different spaces and different times. It's still the basic idea of what fairness means. Without any further ado, let's get into this video.
Should men get involved in household chores? I'm going to start off with Brother Mahdi, inshallah. So do you have 1.5 minutes? 1 second.
For me, the affair is simple. Look, we live in a time in the West where the average household requires 2 incomes, okay? Although we would love for the man to be the sole breadwinner and for the woman to be at home and so on, the reality is, especially in this hyperinflationary environment that we live in here in the West, that most people need 2 incomes to run the house. So at a minimum, the guy's going to be working full-time, maybe a bit extra, and his wife's going to be working part-time or doing something, figuring something out. If she is contributing meaningfully towards the household expenditures, then it's not unreasonable for her to expect her husband to involve himself in some type of chores.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with what he said, okay? Very rational point. If you're working and your wife is working, there is no reason why both of you that are working 40 hours a week, there is no reason why you being the man should be expecting that your woman should, take care of the chores and wash the dishes. If both of you are working 40 hours a week. Very rational point, especially in an economy like America or Canada or any other place in the West, where inflation is high and it's very hard to make actual money or even get a job. And he goes on to explain this perfectly.
Let me give you an example, okay? If you have average Abdullah, he's working 40 hours a week. Yeah. Average Abdullah, he requires his wife, her name's Bushra, basic Bushra. She's also working 40 hours a week. Both of them are coming home after a 40-hour work week, tired. Just as tired as each other. He's doing whatever he's doing and she's doing whatever she is doing, okay? He wants to come home and relax, understandable. But guess what? She's also worked 40 hours as well. She wants to come home and relax. Now, if she, mashallah, wants to take that all on her own shoulders, so be it. But it's not unreasonable for her to expect him to pitch in if they have both done 2 40-hour work weeks.
Notice how he said expectations to pitch in. Very important. Yes, it's an expectation, but pitching in means that she's already going to do some chores, right? To do like some house chores, like cleaning or whatever. And the expectation is that you also pitch in because both of you have worked so hard. It's not that she's expecting you to work and she just goes to bed. It's that she's expecting you to pitch in. That is very accurate use of language.
If I'm the sole breadwinner,
yes,
okay, and my wife's at home, brother, I ain't lifting a finger. I don't even want to know where the salt is. I'm not lifting one finger. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allah has blessed me with wives that don't require me to lift a finger. But if I am pitching in and she is pitching in as well, it's unreasonable for me to also expect her to do now another part-time shift at home whilst I'm chilling.
I can tell this triggered the ladies, at least the one in black, and you hear from her soon, right? Now again, this is Muslim beliefs, right? So at least according to him, that's what he believes that should be done. Some might think it's extreme. I don't necessarily think it's extreme because it's kind of fair. What he's saying is this: if I'm going to make all the income, if I'm going to make all the money, then why should I lift a finger? Okay, to make sure that I cook food and I clean the house and I wash the dishes. Why should I do that? I'm expected to make all the money, right? Making money, whether you like it or not, is not easy. Now, I personally, if let's say my wife is tired or something, then I would help out, and I think most men would, right? But the context is, if I am making all the money, then there's no expectation on me to pitch in the house chores or in the home building, right? That's the key word, expectation, right? Because I'm only giving my value by working outside, okay, by going on to bringing the bacon. So I guess that you should go ahead and do something else that is equally in value to what I'm doing, or at least quite similar.
Go on, go for it, sister.
Firstly, as a man, it is your duty, Islamically, to provide for the woman as an amana. You have taken her as a wife, so it is your responsibility, regardless of whether she works or not, to take care of her. You went to her father, you asked for her hand, and you have said, I'm going to look after your daughter. Before she came to you, she was working, right? And her dad was taking care of her bills and everything. And now you have taken that responsibility, and she's working, and you expect her to pay half of the bills?
She's got 50 seconds. No, she got 50 seconds.
Then, for example, if a woman has now had a baby, yeah, and you are working 40 hours a week, would you not help your wife around the house? Pick up things she cannot bend, she just had a baby. It is adab, and as a woman in Islam, from what I know, it isn't our duty. It's not by force. You don't marry us to be slaves. You marry us for a company and to enjoy us as a woman. But it's not
5 seconds.
You do the chores and I make the money, and if you want me to help with the chores, then you have to pay half the bills.
Okay, basically, let's break down what this lady is saying. First of all, she's saying under Islamic law, by the way, which is the Islamic law that she agrees with, very important. Under Islamic law, okay, she supposed to be taken care of by the man because the man took her from her father, right? And so now he has sole responsibility to take care of her, whether or not she wants to work. That's what she said. Now, this is the irony, right? She says because at least when she was with her father, she was working. She said that. So when she was a father, she was able to work, but now she's no longer working because she's with a man, right? But yet she also said that now Imam must take up the responsibility that her father had of paying for the bills and all those stuff. So let me get this straight. Your father was working when you were working, but he was paying for the bills. So what were you paying for? Do you see what I'm getting out of this? Do you see the problem? And I will guarantee you that was not really what happened. I'm like 70% sure. I could be wrong 30% of the time, but I'm 70% sure that her father made her do house chores around the house. Now, obviously, she wouldn't say that because that would flaw her argument, right? Because even though she was his child, and even though she came into this world without her permission, because obviously no child comes into this world wanting it. They didn't ask to come into this world. They had no say in the matter, right? As every child doesn't, right? So she came to this world, right? And still is expected to do house chores by her parents, to act right, right? To cook. I'm pretty sure she was expected to cook, even if she didn't want to, quote unquote, right? But then when she's now married to the man she's supposed to spend the rest of her life for, she doesn't want to have to live up to an expectation of providing services in the house. She has an expectation that he provides financial stability for her, that she doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to, right? But she can still have everything taken care, financially, right? But then she doesn't want to have the expectation placed on her by the man that she should work in the house. It's kind of ironic to me, right? And he touched on this at some point in the interview. I won't get into that today because the video will be way too long, right? It was like, in that case, then if you don't want to have to do the work, then I don't want to have to pay the bills, right? Maybe tomorrow I don't feel like going to work. We could miss a day of pay. Yeah. So when I tell most of you red pill folk that it doesn't matter where you go, it doesn't matter what religion, whether she's Muslim, in this case, Christian, atheist, agnostic, pagan, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you go, whether it's Brazil, wherever you go, right? Most women, not right, I won't say a lot of women, right, have been influenced by the West and the West mindset of whereby the women's roles are negotiable, the man's roles are fixed. So they can do whatever they want, okay? While men must remain slaves to provide and to protect. And even if their religion and their belief, right, says that women must also contribute to the house, they will still try to use even that same religion to flip it and make it look like, you know, the religion mandates that men must provide and protect and they have to do nothing. That is the core problem in society. Allegedly, women can choose their roles, but men have to stick with theirs. Men have to take women out to date, make her feel special, entertain her like a personal clown, right? Be expected to take abuse from women, even physically, like she's slapping him in his face and he keeping his hands to himself because she's not allowed to, quote unquote, hit a woman back. And that is basically Western philosophy. And even though many things like this are not found within Islam, right? This mentality is still pervasive among everybody influenced by the West, which is, I would say, 90% of the entire world. And another thing I want to touch on, she mentioned slavery, that Islamic women have rights and she shouldn't be forced to or be expected to take up responsibility for the cleaning of the house. But the irony is that she expects the man to take up responsibility for the paying of the bills. It's just so hypocritical, because she's in one mouth saying, I shouldn't be forced to do this. Being in that mouth saying, you should be forced to do this. You should slave for me. You should totally go out of your way to get a job. I shouldn't work if I don't want to. And you should contribute financially for all the necessities of the house. That's basically what she's saying. I don't want to be a slave, but you should be a slave because Allah demanded it. You notice how she also said, you marry us for company and to enjoy us as a woman, right? Basically meaning that you marry us to talk with us and to sleep with us, which has no fucking value in a fucking relationship apart from just bonding. That's it. It's crazy that even a Muslim woman is giving the same speech I've heard many modern women give. That's why I told you it's not about religion or where they are from. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with their core values and their willingness to sacrifice. Because obviously she's trying not to do anything. She's trying to manipulate men to get them to do the most for her while she does the least for them. Basically, she's trying to game these niggas, right? Gaining access with minimum effort. She's trying to put in the least amount of effort to gain the most amount of access to resources that she doesn't even deserve. That's the point. It's all manipulation. Trying to manipulate men to give everything while she gives nothing. That's it. And she was probably hoping that nobody would really notice that sleight of hand. But this next brother, I think, was pretty annoyed. Because he came out swinging.
Listen, if I'm going to work, I'm waking up, yeah? I'm going to work, yeah? For 9, 8, 10 hours, how many hours a day that I'm working? I come home, yeah? And I'm providing, like Matthew said rightfully, there is context to this as well. If I'm providing everything, she don't need to lift a finger, yeah? Like, what you been doing the rest of your day for all this time? What you been sitting your hands, watching the paint dry? Do you know what I mean? I'm sure we can come up with some sort of circumstance where, yeah, I would probably help out and I would be compassionate enough to help out. If you're giving birth to my babies, I won't be like, sorry, love, you haven't done the dishes. You know what I mean? I'm going to go do the dishes and help you out. I understand that, you know what I mean? But you're picking at exceptions, yeah, to try and disprove the rule.
Perfect. Perfectly put. Perfectly put. And finally, the first brother comes back and he eloquently summarizes, and counters our points beautifully. And he touches on a subject I really wanted to touch in this video. The equal or fair exchange of values, actual values.
Let's rewind.
Okay.
Let's rewind, inshallah. So your initial point was it was a two-pronged question. The first point was with regards to the man's responsibility is to provide for the household, and then the second part was what if she's given birth. So we'll address both issues. You expect me to work Let's make it different. My wife expects me to work, provide, and so on and so forth. Normal, adi, right? Okay. If a man is in a privileged position, which unfortunately is a privilege today, to be able to sustain a household and a family on one salary, that's a privilege. Yeah, because the reality is most people need 2 incomes. So you're in that privileged position. Excellent. I expect a privilege in return. The privilege I am offering you is to stay at home where you want to be in the first place. The privilege I expect back is a relaxed wife who hasn't been obeying her master in the workplace, taking orders from her master over there. No, she's at home and she has the food ready for me and the house is tidy and everything's cool. That's the value. It's an exchange of value. So if I am in this privileged position to be able to take care of a woman on her own, and she wants to work, in my case personally, it's not going to happen. But if a man allows this, then it is within his right for him to expect her to contribute towards the household bills because she is taking value from him.
There can be no relationship without fair exchange of values. And that is why it's important to find out whether the woman that you like, that you adore, that you love, really likes you back, really adores you back, and really loves you back. In my opinion, romantic relationships can only work based on 3 major things. And the third one is the most important. So keep listening. Number 1, there must be a significant amount of investment on the side of both parties for a relationship to work. You can't have a situation where one party is ready to do whatever it takes to make things work, and the other party is just hanging out and being lackluster about it. You can't have that happen because that relationship would fail, or because the one that is working will burn themselves out while the other one will reap the benefits of what they did not sow. Number 2, there has to be some kind of a leader in a relationship, right? And I know most people will say, especially females, funny enough, will say, hey, that is not true. We can all be equals and do everything equally. Now, that sounds good on paper, but in reality, it doesn't work because there was never been equality since forever. Because for the most part, I think in the last 150 years, or even probably more than that, women have been telling their husbands what to do. Okay, this despite the idea that most people think that men were the leaders in the house. No, women will tell them what to do, and they were like, that's a happy wife, happy life kind of slogan, right? So men have been gaslit to believe that they have been leading for years. That's not really true. Not in the modern world anyway. You've not really been leading the relationship for years. Your wife tells you what to do, right? And she nags you, she shames you. And there are occasions where there are, don't get me wrong, couples that shame and nag each other. But for the most part, when people say there's equality, there's not really equality, right? Women have gaslit men to think that there's actually equality, but then they control the relationship. They nag him, they insult him, they emasculate him in front of their friends. They belittle him, they hit him, slap him. And that's not even leadership at all. That's just being toxic and domineering. It has nothing to do with being a leader. Because these women are not ready to sacrifice for this man and do things that make sure that this man's life are much easier and much more fruitful than if the cases were reversed. At least if the cases were reversed in a non-toxic relationship, right? Finally, number 3. Mutual exchange of values. Or let me rephrase that. Fair exchange of values which ends up being mutualistic, right? And to me, that's the most important thing. So it goes beyond just each other giving 100%, right, of their effort. Is now what effort are you actually giving? Is it good currency or not? Now, a woman might twist the first point I made, and that's why this number 3, though it sounds the same, it's very different. She might say, hey, you know what, I gave in my best efforts, I put in my best into giving in the best pussy you could ever get, right? So women make these crazy arguments, and trust me, they do, right? And if you don't believe, I will make multiple videos proving this, right? They give these arguments, right? And then they want to make the argument that they need to be compensated by the man's money in a form of equal sacrifice, which is crazy to me. And that is what his third point is: the fair exchange of values. I'm sorry, but if you're a woman and you're listening, your vagina is not equal to a job. Money is a storage of effort. Okay? It's not a storage of pleasure. You cannot, and you have no idea how much times I've heard this nonsense. You cannot tell a man that because you gave him pussy, that means you deserve his money. And they use that word deserve. It's as if they actually did something special for him while they just had a mutual handshake. Because that's what sex is. Sex is a mutual handshake, unless it's not consensual, right? You should not be awarded for busting a nut. That's not the way things work. Or at least you should not be awarded for potentially busting a nut. Because some women might argue, men are really pleasure me in bed, all that kind of nonsense, right? I don't really care. You must not be pleasured for the potential of even busting a nut. That's not the way the word works. If you want a relationship, you have to give something that's actually valuable. So that's why I said equal exchange of what? Values.